Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom Podcast. I'm really excited to bring to you today Clifford Starks. He's going to talk about the Fighter Formula Unleashed Champion. As we were talking backstage, I love the intersection of athletic and business because they each embody a lot of success traits needed to be an entrepreneur. So, Cliff, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher. I appreciate you having me. Appreciate the nice introduction too.
Yeah, so tell the audience about how your background, your story, and we'll get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I enjoy dreaming big, and the reason I enjoy dreaming so big, I was 5 years old. My grandfather passed away,
Mm,
and I was like frozen, solid. And I realized like, holy crap, one day I'm gonna die.
mm,
And in that process, I didn't know. I kind of coached myself through it and said, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna live as much life as I can. And so that's what I focused on doing, was just living a life worth living. And I got to fight in the UFC. I got to fight in Bellator, personal training, coaching people in their businesses. And I'm just having a lot of fun as I go through my process of life.
mm. Yeah, and I love that. I've followed I've competed Olympic Taekwondo, but I followed the UFC because UFC is like kind of like three-dimensional. It's like another level, and again, the athletes there are entrepreneurs, and so it's very fascinating. So, what is the Fighters Formula Unleashed Champion? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it was interesting because it was something that I was coming up with as I made my transition. So I made my transition from being a fighter to being an entrepreneur. And one of those things was I wanted to speak to people. I wanted to transform people. And so as I went through it, there's a saying, if you want to connect the dots, go backwards. And even Steve Jobs, he talks about the only way you can connect the dots is by going backwards. And so I worked through a person having a transformational experience, and I go, what were the things that led up to that transformational experience? And so I started going, okay, well, I went through this and then this piece and then this piece over here and then this piece. And I realized like it's the same things every single time. Like the same occurrences tend to happen on a regular basis. And so I put together this formula and looked at it and said, this is it. This is the process that not only I take myself through, and I'm going to continue to take myself through, but I help others and I have them take themselves.
Uh-huh. I love that. I love that idea of reverse engineering. So, and the other, we'll get into kind of the similarities between fighting. Again, where fighting is more like athletics. I know it sounds kind of grim and animalistic, but it's like it's entrepreneur. There's a lot of similarity in spirituality, and so you talk about learn to fight and flow in life and business.
Because you're going to like, in anything that you do, there's going to be a point of fighting and there's going to be a point of flowing. And I look at, for a person to ride the highest wave, they would have had to crash many times before riding that wave, right? If a person can see it, visualize themselves knowing that they're going after the thing, now it makes sense in their head, even though it might not make sense in anyone else's head. Like, well, you've crashed like 28 times, you probably should stop. Like, but no, I can see myself riding that wave, and I know one day I'm going to ride that wave. And so whether you have to do it 50 times or 1,000 times, you're going to figure out how to ride that wave at the end of the day.
And the other thing is enjoying the journey unapologetic. And what I really mean by that is like, be unapologetic of your success because the hate and as it relates to the haters and the naysayers and the people that want you to fail.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And you look at like, it took me some time to actually understand this. People who want you to fail just haven't made their success yet. They haven't gotten to where they're looking to go yet. And when I realized that, I'm like, oh crap, haters aren't even really haters. They're just kind of hating themselves and they're pointing it outwardly to somebody else. But
Mm,
if a person has accomplished their dream, they have no reason to hate another human being. Like they're where they want to be. They're in the place that they want to be. And sometimes the haters don't realize what they're doing. And the truth is, A hater can only do something if you allow them to do it. Like if you go like, oh, well, let me hold on to this crap that you have. Like, wait a minute, I don't have to hold on to anything. I can let go of this because it doesn't serve me in any way. In fact, I got my own crap that I got to let go of. So let me focus on letting go of my stuff instead of holding on to someone else's stuff.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I love that. I really love that. And once, especially what it conjures when you're talking is like kind of like people will throw their shit at you and then, you don't have to catch it. It's like that's their problem. I mean, everybody takes care of themselves. And I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. How do you, how do you compare, again, we say fighting, competing, how does it correlate to business? What does it feel like? And how does values set into that?
Yeah. So there's three things that you need to stand a chance at either game. You have to have the mindset, right? And that just means the mental framework to believe in yourself and believe in your team. Just like a a fighter is getting ready, they don't just fight by themselves to get ready for a fight. They have sparring partners, they have teammates, they have people supporting them. In business is much the same. You have your teammates, your support system, your clients, your employees, whatever it may be, the boss even. Whoever those support systems are, you got to ask yourself, do I have the right support systems? And do I have the right mindset if what in what I'm doing? Because if you have a growth mindset, you'll constantly stretch into new possibilities. If you have a closed mindset, you're just going to shrink anyway because the world's always adjusting. It's all you always got to pivot and adjust accordingly to whatever those things may be. And then there's the heart set, and the heart set just means like I know, like in my heart, I'm going to figure out what I need to figure out. Sometimes we don't know the how in things. This is in fighting and in business. Sometimes we don't know the how. So we have to create the how by bringing the right people around and just having an experience together and going like, holy crap, I didn't know we could do that. Or I didn't know we could pull this off. Or I didn't know this would, when these things come together, it creates this. Let's do more of this. And so ask yourself, like, is it speaking to your heart? Are you speaking with your heart? And then the other part is the skill set. Because you can have a mindset in place and you can have a heart set in place. But if you don't have the skills, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're not a skilled fighter, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
No matter how much you believe, no matter how much you think you can do it, if the skills aren't there, you're done. And the same is true in business. If you don't build the skill sets, good luck. And so I say, get those three together. Like, where's your heart set at? Where's your mindset at? And where's your skill set at? And and what do you have to work on? And what do you have to change and adjust and get better at?
And how does core values fit into this and into competing, into business, into life?
Yeah, so your core values, it really just aligns you with the energy you want to be aligned with, right?
Oh,
Me and you are having a conversation, and I guarantee our core values align in certain ways. Like it didn't just accidentally happen that we had this conversation. We were really intentional with making this come together.
yeah.
And the same is true with anything that we do. Now, if we're not intentional with our core values, now we're just going to fall for whatever's around us because we don't know what our values are. And if we don't know what our values are, how can we be intentional in our life? And so
Hmm.
all it does is it allows that anchor to be intentional in something. So just like that person who's riding those waves, those like they see themselves, I'm going to ride that big wave. There's certain things that have to occur for the riding of that wave to ever even exist. And
Hmm.
so when you have the practices, when you have the thought processes, when you have the pieces in place that you need, you're going to do the things that you need to do. Now, if
Hmm.
you don't have them in place, you're just going to kind of go with wherever the wind takes you. And you're really, really in trouble then because now you're equating it to luck. That is a dangerous way to play in fighting in business and life and whatever you do.
Yeah.
So the core values just anchor you into who you are and what you were meant to do and how you serve.
Mm, very powerful. And it's really like in MMA or whatever, that's real, that's raw, your life is on the line and you're like in the moment. and you watch all the best athletes professionally. It's like they have strong core values. That's why they're the best, and they don't care
Yeah.
what people, they don't care what people say that, they're supposed to do this and that. They stick to who they are, and so I love that. Then of course there's adversity in life, business. You're gonna lose sometimes.
Oh
You're
yeah.
gonna so how do you, what's your mindset as a fighter, that helped you during, these times?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's the external world and the internal world, right? And I say ultimately the internal world's your best friend. Now I'll tell you, I had a story where I lost on live TV, and not only did I lose, I got knocked out on live
Mm,
TV. It
mm,
sucked. Ultimately, no one goes out there and trains that hard for something like that to happen. Like they're not like, oh, well, if I lose, I lose. Like, no, it hurts and it sucks.
yeah.
But here's what was interesting to me. It actually served and supported one of my clients.
Mm,
And that specific client, my son had to say hi to me real quick. He said he'd never seen me lose. He'd never truly seen me lose.
uh,
Then he saw me lose on the biggest stage of my life. Like he's just like, I'm on live TV. And
uh,
if you lose in the UFC, they show that stuff repeatedly over and over again with different angles. It sucks. And he goes, but I knew you were who you said you were because of how you took the loss.
mm,
Life's going to give us everything, everything, especially to live a life worth living. You have to take risk. We're all taking risk all the time. The question is, how big of the risk are you taking?
mm,
Yes, when I'm fighting with a high level person, I am taking a very big risk, but I also have a very big reward at the end of that. If I go head to head with another high level individual, we both have something, win or lose. Now, the truth is, you can't really lose unless you have the perception that you've lost. It's really how you perceive it. I've had plenty of learning experiences on my journey. And yeah, did it feel like a loss in that moment? Hell yeah, it did. It sucked. It was uncomfortable. I worked my ass off to get there. And it was just taken away. But I also know, like, this goes back to the fighter's formula. It's extreme responsibility. Control what you can and don't try and control what you can't. I can't rewind that. I could only take that and use it. And so that's what I did. Is when you get knocked down, you do have an opportunity to get back up. I'm not going to stay down. I refuse to.
mm.
Because in staying down, you've just given up. And if you give up, what's the point of even living anymore?
Yeah, so powerful. And yeah, I talk to, a lot these days. I'm talking to entrepreneurs, and they say their biggest loss, like their win is just like a hit of dopamine, and then but they're like the
Yeah.
where they really grew was like their biggest loss. And they lost, or lost a big match, or lost a lot of money, or lost a sale. So that's where you learn, and so powerful. So
Yeah.
what
Pain
did
teaches us.
yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it's a huge motivator.
Yes.
So now you're doing good work. You transition from athlete to now an entrepreneur. So what's next, and how can people follow you? Check out your social media, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. And if you guys need any of that information, let me know and I can send it over so we can have it below. But yeah, just reach out to me. And the cool thing, so if you said, I'm a fighter, just text me that and I'll send you my own PDF for free. And
Yeah,
we will, if you'd be interested, we have a conversation and see if we can get to know each other a little bit better. Because ultimately, my game's about building relationships. I want to support 1 billion people on the journey. And what I didn't realize, like in that wanting to support 1 billion people, they're also supporting me too. It's creating that win-win synergy and
yeah,
saying like, hey, I serve you and you serve me.
yeah.
That's the name of the game. So yeah, if this resonates with anybody, would love to connect with you.
A fabulous conversation. Just extreme ownership. I think this conversation reminds me of that book. Just taking ownership and
Oh,
really.
Jocko Willing, that dude's amazing. I love that guy.
And thanks so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this conversation, and all of the resources will be on links and show notes for the listeners. And thanks for coming on to the podcast.
Awesome, Christopher. Absolutely appreciate it. And thank you, audience, for you tuning in and being a part of it. Hope I gave you value. And yeah, have an amazing, amazing day. Appreciate you.